Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings and salutations. Hello again, amazing Hempster. Welcome to another Hemp episode of Hemp Aware Radio. Tyler Hemp here, your Hemp-entrepreneurial host, here to empower and hemp-educate your hemposphere, as always, because it's hemportant. And here we are again with another brief yet very powerful and hemp-educational show for you. I believe that investing in your education and investing in hemp are two essential actions that you can be doing for yourself and our economy, the planet as a whole, that will make a long-term beneficial impact on your life and the lives of everyone on the planet. And so today we have a very special guest, my new friend, Bruce Dietzen. He's the founder of the company Carbon Negative Fiber, as well as the website renewsportscars.com. And in fact, he actually built his very own hemp car containing hemp fibers, which we're going to get into in just a moment. But I'm super excited to have him on today's show to discuss some of the crucial topics of hemp, some of the main challenges in the industry and opportunities that we have in front of us. And incidentally, Bruce is working on a really cool relaunch of Jack Herer's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. He's working side by side with Dan Herer, his son, and a group of people that are helping bring this phenomenal foundational book for the industry back into the hands of the people. So if you haven't already checked it out, go to Amazon.com and check out the eBook version of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And we'll get into that as well in just a moment. But thank you so much for being on the show, Bruce.
Thank you, Tyler. It's great to be here.
Right on. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of your cool hemp car and what you're doing with your company, Carbon Negative Fiber, give us a little bit of background of your story. Where did you come from? What's kind of your history and what led you up to the hemp industry in general?
Yeah, I really was in the computer industry and the internet industry for about 25 years. And then at that point just decided I wanted to do what I wanted to do, right? Instead of working for the man, I wanted to do things for myself. And just wanted to do what so many other guys have probably all wanted to do. Not all guys, but, design your own car, right? What guy didn't want to have his own car? And so I spent a few years doing that, and that's when I discovered, in the process of just investigating unique things about the automobile industry, truly, truly unique designs and this sort of thing, I discovered Chapter 5 of a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes that talked about how Henry Ford started in 1929 to build a car that was made from as much material as he possibly could from his farms, instead of using classic stuff like steel. And then he also ran it on the residues from his cannabis hemp fields, because everybody knows that Henry Ford grew cannabis, right? Everybody knew that, right? But actually, they didn't. So I'm kind of joking, but that's what got me into the world of hemp, because I read about that, and then I calculated just how green that car must have been, because it was made out of plant materials and it ran off of plant materials, and it blew me away. That convinced me that I had to make my own hemp car.
That's beautiful. Yeah, incidentally, Rudolf Diesel, the inventor of the diesel engine, from my research, he actually intended for the diesel engine to be ran on plant and seed oils, biodiesel.
Correct. Yes,
so
I believe that's true. Yes.
So Henry Ford and all of our listeners can check out Henry Ford's hemp car on YouTube. I mean, this isn't a secret anymore. It's coming out. There's even evidence of him hitting the car with a sledgehammer on this video, or someone did. I think you might have actually done that with Jay Leno as well at one point. You were on a show with your car hitting the front of the hood, right? Showing the strength and durability.
Right. Yeah. I was on Jay Leno's garage, and he had his team had an entire script all put together, right? and we were supposed to kind of loosely follow the script. And then Jay walks up, and he's completely on a different script, right? And it's his show, so he can do whatever he wants to do. So I just ad-libbed too, and I just started beating the hell out of my car, and he's looking at me like I lost my mind, and almost broke my hand. And it was just a really great scene because he's such a cool guy, such a witty guy. I beat on the car for a little bit, and then I turned to Jay and I said, "Jay, do you want to try?" So he walks up to it and he kind of taps on it a couple times and says, "Okay, it should start now." I was cracking up. I mean, he's just a super cool guy, a super funny guy, and that was a great experience. But getting back to Henry Ford, and Rudolph Diesel, etc., those guys, they went through World War I. They saw that there was a finite amount of steel and metal and petroleum was just being discovered in places like Texas, and they saw that was fairly finite as well. So they saw that there was a limited amount of resources that we currently take for granted today. But things like steel and petroleum were not considered to be widely available. So that's why these guys were looking at other things like plant materials to fuel vehicles or to make vehicles out of. It's a very strange situation because back then they came up with the answer to today's climate catastrophe well before they ever knew there was going to be a climate crisis. They came up with this idea, let's stop digging stuff up from underneath the ground, and instead let's just grow the stuff that we need from within the soil, from above the ground. And Henry Ford actually had a saying, and I remember first mentioning this when I first talked to some potential investors 5 years ago, and I said, they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm growing cars from the soil." And they looked at me like, "Are you an idiot?" And I said, "No." I said, "That's a direct quote from Henry Ford, because that's what Ford set out to do." And unfortunately, he passed away only a couple of years after he introduced that car in 1941, and so he couldn't continue to pursue that direction. If he would have been alive, if he hadn't been 80 years old or so, I can guarantee you, given his fortitude and his drive. And his level of ambition, we would all be driving hemp cars today. You guys wouldn't be calling. Wouldn't be calling me, asking for an interview.
Exactly.
We'd be driving hemp cars already. We'd be living in buildings made out of hemp. We'd be a renewable. We'd be a renewable society, is what we would be if we had followed that path. But unfortunately. We just kept on thinking, we can keep on digging up as much oil and steel and iron ore as we want to, and everything is just be hunky-dory. But now we know we were wrong, right, as a society.
No doubt. We live and we learn. So now we're on a mission to empower the world with this truth. And obviously we could have an entire show just on my next question. But other than, the fiber aspect and the fact that we can replace fossil fuels, what is it that makes you so passionate about hemp and cannabis in general, or just the industry at large?
Well, in one word, I would call it inevitability. What we were just talking about here isn't something that's just going to be a pipe dream. We have no choice. If we want to continue to stay on this planet, in an inhabitable planet, along with half the species that are already here, before we lose all those as well, and we have to become a renewable society. That's pretty much well understood. The only part of the education process that's not complete yet is that everybody on the planet doesn't quite yet understand that hemp is the most versatile plant to use in order to become a 100% sustainable society. So what's happening, you're seeing all these various different segments out there in the economy that are generating greenhouse gases. Like the electricity segment, which generates 25% of it. That's being disrupted by things like uh, wind turbines and solar panels, which both can be made from hemp fiber, by the way, instead of these minerals that have to be pulled out of the ground like iron ore and bauxite, right? Yeah, they're making these solar panels with aluminum stands that hold them up. Guess what?
Right.
You can make that. You can make that with hemp fiber. Ultimately, once it's scaled, cheaper and lighter than from aluminum.
Exactly,
you can make
and
these
stronger
wind blades out of hemp fiber, and they should last longer because the hemp fiber actually has a capability to absorb energy. It's called energy damping, and so that's one of the things that slowly destroys these wind vanes because they're made out of carbon fiber and fiberglass, just vibration. So then you have another segment. You've got the agricultural segment, right? And you already know that hemp can help regenerate lots of soils, right? You could do a whole story on that. I'm sure if you haven't done one, you will someday. But then you've got the transportation segment, and so there's guys like me that have made hemp cars. There's guys like Elon Musk and Tesla that have made electric cars. Just huge disruptive technologies. But the thing that gets me most excited is the third largest contributor to greenhouse gases, and that is the industrial sector, the people that make everything around us. From drywall to cement to 2x4s, to televisions, the computer that you're talking to right now, all the stuff. Those are all made by the industrial sector. And guess what? The largest contributor of greenhouse gases for the industrial sector is a group of it's a group that I call the structural materials subsector of the industrial sector. It's responsible
building materials
for building materials are in that area, right? But it's responsible for a total of about 9% of all man-made greenhouse gases. It's one of the largest contributors to the climate catastrophe right now. And hemp is the best material to replace some of these current materials, which include steel, which is the big one. That's an $807 billion market. Aluminum, which is a $160 billion market. And then you get into some of the smaller ones like fiberglass and carbon fiber, which are designed to replace steel and aluminum. And those combined are about a $16 billion market. So it adds up to about $1 trillion market right now that's not being addressed, right? Nearly as much as other segments I talked about, the transportation, the electricity, and the agriculture. This is the third largest contributor of greenhouse gases right now, and we're not doing much about it. There's a couple of companies that have gotten about $100 million or more invested into them in order to address the issue with cement, which is about 8% of greenhouse gases. But the structural materials, steel, aluminum, fiberglass, and carbon fiber, that's just starting. And it's just people are just starting to become aware that we can replace a lot of those materials with hemp fiber.
Indeed. So you could have gone after this in different ways in terms of how to make your impact or how to get people to look at this opportunity. So what spurred you wanting to make a car in particular? You could have built a house, you could have done a clothing line, you could have done other obviously applications, but why was it a car specifically? What spurred that idea?
Well, again, I went into this kind of blind. My knowledge of hemp 6 years ago was nada, right? I really didn't know anything about hemp, and it was just reading that book when it just dawned on me. Oh my God! I mean, I sat down and I calculated it. I'm one of these geeks that likes to quantify stuff. You got a lot of people running around saying all sorts of stuff, but I go like, show me the math. And so I did some homework on this thing and figured out that the total lifetime carbon footprint of a car that's mostly made out of hemp and runs on scraps that are taken out of the field and turned into ethanol. Like Henry Ford did. The total lifetime carbon footprint for that vehicle was probably less than five tons of CO2. And so that just blew my mind, because that's a lot lower than the lifetime carbon footprint of even just making an electric car, which is like double that at least. So that's what convinced me. And then, I went from being a car enthusiast to a hemp enthusiast.
Yeah,
and then,
a hemp car enthusiast.
Started taking a look at all these other things, and met lots of other guys like yourself and the folks that are doing hempcrete and hemp buildings and hemp plastics, and it's huge. I mean, everybody's got to get into this thing. This is very exciting time.
So what would you say some of the toughest challenges are? You had this idea, this vision, you did the research, and within a few years, you're driving around in this red hemp sports car. What were some of the biggest challenges to overcome to get that accomplished? And what would someone expect to invest to build their own hemp car?
Well, as you can well imagine, the first time you set out to do something like this, you got to experiment. You got to work through several different types of woven hemp in order to find the best solution. Right? There's all sorts of different hemp that's out there that you can get. And then there's, and that's the reinforcement in what's called a composite, right? There's reinforcement, and then there's a resin or a matrix that holds it together, right? So had to experiment with several of those as well. And so that was the obvious challenge. So that took, 12 iterations, et cetera. We've now got it down to the point where these composites that we make are about 46% lighter than aluminum, right?
Wow.
And aluminum is used on automobiles to make the automobiles lighter. Cut that down by 46% again. You're onto something, right? So now, if somebody else was out to make their own hemp car, they would have to go through that whole process as well.
Yeah.
So really, what I'm focusing on right now is the development of something that I call carbon negative fiber. It's like carbon fiber, only it's good for the environment, right? So I'm developing that so that other companies can use that material to make their products instead of turning to carbon fiber, fiberglass, aluminum, and steel. And let me just make this very simple. If you're out there right now and you're using, say, a fiberglass fabric and some resins in order to make your product, whether it's a shower enclosure or it's a kit car or whatever it might be. If you
toy
use fiberglass, you have to understand going into this that for every pound of that fiberglass that you use, you're dumping 12 pounds of CO2 into the atmosphere.
Wow.
And
amazing.
If you're using carbon fiber, right? Now, especially if you're thinking, you know what, I really want to make a really green vehicle, an airplane or a train or a bus or a car. And so it's got to be really green. So I'm going to go out and make it out of carbon fiber. No. Because for every pound of carbon fiber you use, you're dumping anywhere from 20 to 48 pounds of CO2 into the atmosphere. And that may sound kind of weird. How could 1 pound of CO2, 1 pound of carbon fiber, and that's going to generate 20 pounds of CO2 that gets dumped in the atmosphere? And it literally is 20 pounds. But it's gas. So it just escapes into the atmosphere. You don't see these big chunks. It's gas. It's CO2.
Yeah.
But that's literally what's going on. So And what's interesting in the world today is that there are all these big corporations that are pledging to go carbon neutral, carbon negative, etc. So they're concerned with the amount of CO2 that's generated during the manufacturing process, called embodied carbon. So even big companies like Unilever, right? They have 7,000 brands. You buy their stuff and use their stuff. You've got Q-tips. You've got, Dove soap, all this kind of stuff. They're one of the biggest corporations in the world. They have committed to put right on the label on each one of their products in the coming years just how much CO2 is generated in the manufacturing of the process. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing it? They because they're good citizens, and that's going to force all the rest of these other corporations in the future to do the same thing, right?
Set the bar higher, higher standards for companies.
That's exactly right.
It's great.
So the trend is happening. It's a wonderful thing, and all these companies, they're going to look for all sorts of ways to have a lowered carbon footprint. But I think what people like you and I are doing is helping to educate them. Hey, just look at hemp, right?
Yeah.
There's companies like believe it or not, British Petroleum, right? Delta Airlines, JetBlue. These guys are all in the liquid. They're all very much involved in the liquid fossil fuels, right?
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? They're pledging to become carbon neutral. So what are they going to do? They've got to use liquid fossil fuel, or they have to use liquid fuels. But it can't be dug up underneath the ground anymore. It needs to be made from plant materials. And what grows faster than anything else than hemp?
Exactly.
So you're going to have all this hemp agricultural waste that's going to be there. It's going to be just like back in 1941 when Henry Ford did it. So there's nothing under the sun. The only thing that's changed is that we're finally waking up and going like, wow, this whole industrial revolution was a really cool thing. We really made a lot of advancements, but unfortunately, we effed up the entire world. What we have to do is un-F the entire world at this point. Or our grandkids' kids are just not going to, they're toast.
Have a world.
That's right.
To keep innovating.
So it's a very exciting time. Very exciting.
It is. It's a wild time and an exciting time, but we're on the cutting edge of reality, and we are the creators now to make this world a better place, and I feel like that's our opportunity here. And we kind of already went over some of your successes. I mean, obviously, actually making a hemp car is a success in and of itself, and then having Jay Leno come check it out and beat it with his hand is another cool little success. But what would you say some of the other successes are that you've experienced in the last 6 years that you've gotten into the hemp industry?
Well, I guess it was probably about a year and a half ago. Dan Harrer contacted me and asked me. Now, Dan is the son of Jack Harrer, and for all of you that don't know that name, he's probably the most influential guy that has that spent 30 years of his life trying to educate the world about the benefits of cannabis, right? But
the grandfather of the hemp movement,
But Dan approached me and said, you came out of the computer industry, you're probably pretty good with a computer. Do you think you can recreate the book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which is the #1 best-selling book about cannabis and cannabis hemp in history, 700,000 copies, in print. And so, what the heck, I'll do it. So, I had some time and redigitized the whole book. And now it's back and available on Amazon, the 14th edition. And so people can get a hold of that. And, especially, I think people in their 60s, and like I am, were more likely to have picked up that book because, it was still somewhat available up until 10 years ago, and is something that people knew. I think the younger generations right now don't know much about this book, but you know what they say: if you don't know your history, you're just bound to repeat it. So this is the quintessential book. Anybody that's interested in cannabis in any way, shape, or form really needs to read this book. It's just a really important book to get. Now we also created a eBook version of the book as well, with a lot of updated stories and links to videos that you can watch, which is kind of cool too. So
that's exciting. So go to Amazon right now. Yeah, get that book. It's only $9.99, and share it with your friends and buy it as a gift for someone for Christmas. It's totally worth it, and help this movement to progress and to transform the planet for the positive. We just have a couple minutes left. I would love to have you back on the show again in the near future, but to kind of wrap it up, what would you say some of the biggest opportunities in the hemp industry are right now in the foreseeable future, other than biocomposites and plastics and things like that?
Well, in my opinion, it's the structural materials market. That hasn't been really touched. It's barely been touched at all, but it's $1 trillion market. And addressing that can reduce man-made CO2 up to 9%. I don't think we replace all steel, aluminum, fiberglass, and carbon fiber, but we can replace half of it or more. So
absolutely,
to me, that's the biggest opportunity out there. That's the biggest
structural industry. I love it. Yeah,
structural. Yeah. So just replacing all of those types of materials. But obviously, anything made out of plastic, petroleum plastic, can be made out of hemp plastic. All your papers can be made out of hemp pulp. There's just so many different things, and that's just another reason. Get yourself a copy of this book. It'll talk about how hemp has been used, and now again with the updated ebook version of this thing, we'll talk about all those different areas where it is being used, and we're adding new stories all the time.
Exactly, and by getting the book and reading through it, it'll very likely spark some ideas on whatever your area of expertise is. Maybe you're a musician or an artist or a teacher, or you're an entrepreneur, or whatever it is that you do. At Hemp Aware, we say do one thing, make your DOT, make your DOT, and do one thing with hemp. Because if we all just did one thing every single day with hemp, I think we're going to experience that paradigm shift that we're all envisioning for a healthier, wealthier, happier planet with hemp as our vehicle. So with just a couple minutes left, I'd love to hear your advice for any aspiring hemp-entrepreneurs who want to enter into the hemp industry or the cannabis industry. What's some advice that you'd share with them, and also where can people learn more about you in the future?
Well, to learn more about what I've been doing, you can go to renewsportscars.com, and then also have a site for carbon negative fiber, which is called carbonnegativefiber.com. And then if you want to get a hold of a copy of The Emperor Wears No Clothes, just go to Amazon and look for that title. It's either the ebook that you can get or the 14th edition. That's the official edition for the new version of that.
Awesome.
Now, you were also asking one other thing. What was it?
Just any parting advice or inspiration for the hemp-entrepreneurs out there that are listening to this.
Just go at it, man, and find your niche. It's just a very active space right now, and it's only going to get more active. So now is a great time to get involved. Gosh, I wish I was your age so that I could do this for another 40 years.
Totally.
Just do it. Just do it.
I love it. I totally agree. It's all about just finding what your expertise is, what your talents are, and infusing hemp into that, whatever it might be. If you're a writer or a speaker or a designer, a creator, no matter what it is that you do, there's at least one thing that you can do to incorporate hemp into that vision and mission and purpose. So that's why we're here. And I really appreciate working with you, and I can't wait to see the future of the Emperor Wears No Clothes, returning, and look forward to having you on the show in the future, Bruce. Thanks so much.
It's been my pleasure, Tyler.
All right. See you all next time. Thanks for joining Hemp Aware Radio. Peace out, everyone.